If you're into disappointments just like I am, then you should download the latest firmware update for the Canon R6 Mark II. Hi, I'm Jared with VisibleTour.com, and if you're into cameras and you're into photography and video and everything that has anything to do with that, well, you're in the right place. And if it's your first time, you may want to subscribe because we keep talking about the Canon R6 Mark II. It is an excellent, awesome camera. And quick little note, if you don't know anything about me, I am a Canon fanboy. I will admit it. I love it. I will tell you what I don't like about it, but mostly what I really do like about Canon. If you're a Canon R6 Mark II shooter and you didn't know already, well, there's a firmware update and you probably should update it, even though it is pretty minor and you won't notice any big difference when it comes to it. So I'm going to go over what that firmware update does, and I'm going to tell you my wish list for future firmware updates in 2023. I'm thinking there could possibly be some awesome stuff coming up, especially since their competition is actually not even Sony. Canon's competition is Panasonic, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So let's get into it and talk about the new firmware update. So this is firmware update 1.1.1. That's really easy to remember, 1.1.1. When we get to 6.6.6, then we should be probably scared. But 1.1.1 is the new firmware update. And this one, well, the first thing it addresses is the new speed light. So it is designed specifically for that new speed light that you can get from Canon. I have never used a Canon speed light. I've had really good luck when it comes to third parties, and I highly recommend that. But if Canon is listening and you want to send me that speed light, well, I can't say no. I will take it. The other feature that it addressed on here is the startup time when it comes to the Bluetooth enabled. When you're starting it up, it's supposed to start a little bit faster. Well, if you're not going to be using Bluetooth much on this camera, well, you should disable it anyways, because that's what I do. It saves a lot more battery life. But if you are using Bluetooth a lot, well, it's going to start up more. But if you're not using it, be sure to go into airplane mode because your battery will thank you. The third feature that it addressed in this firmware update is the IPv6 updating when you're using FTP, which I never do. But if you were to upload using FTP, it now uses the IPv6 where it didn't before. Means nothing to me, but it may mean something to you. And then the fourth and final thing that this was addressed is minor fixes. That's what it says, just minor fixes. What are those minor fixes? I looked all over. If you can find what those minor fixes are, I'd be very, very curious. I mean, did it have anything to do with freezing up at times or not recognizing a lens? Or, I mean, what were those fixes? I have no idea. It could have been something so critical, but they don't want to tell you, like, if you would have hit this button, like, what is that minor fix? I don't know. But if you do, leave a comment below. And I know there's a few of you that are really, really good at telling me where these things are because you do better research than I do. And that's why I appreciate you in the community. You're doing an awesome job. So I'm going to set this down for a second because I need both my hands to really articulate what I want in the next firmware update for this camera and why I think it is totally plausible and we should be telling Canon to do it because we are the consumer. We should dictate what goes into this camera, not them, us. So now that I have my hands free and I can shake them out of anger or out of excitement or whatever, I want to tell you this is my wish list. And I think it is pretty plausible when it comes to the Canon R6 Mark II, and the Canon R7 can actually do this as well. And that is something that Panasonic has been doing for a while. I used to have the Panasonic G7. I had the Panasonic GH5. I think Panasonic does amazing work when it comes to video, but unfortunately, what got me to stick with Canon to do more with them was the phase detect. And the autofocus with the phase detect with Canon is amazing. But now that's changed because Panasonic now has phase detect in its full frame camera, which does change quite a bit. Now, I'm not going to jump from Canon to Panasonic. Would I get a Panasonic down the line as a second camera or a dual camera? Possibly. So Panasonic, if you're listening, you guys can fight for my love. I would love it. So if you want to send me one, even to test out, I would be more than happy to do that. But what I want to get at is, I think that the big competition is not Sony. I think it is Panasonic when it comes to Canon. Panasonic has something called OpenGate, and that is using the entire width and height of the sensor. And it really isn't, I'm not an engineer by the way, but it really isn't that complicated to do, especially if they're doing it. Anybody can do it. No offense, Panasonic. But I believe anybody can do that. It's just a choice, and can your hardware handle it with long lengths of time? Is it gonna overheat? But OpenGate is gonna use the full sensor when it comes to readout. Now, it's not gonna be that 16:9 that we're used to when it comes to video, but what it allows you to do in this era of social media is now you can actually play with that full image. And so the full image and pixel width of the Canon R6 Mark II is 6K. So now you'd have a full 6K that you can manipulate, move around, and then pick where you want to maybe crop into that 4K and have that option. So things like Instagram and with Twitter and with, I'm just naming stuff off, but you know what I mean. And obviously the YouTube shorts. This would make a lot of sense if Canon said, hey, our R6 Mark II, we're gonna do OpenGate, and now you have all the possibilities of doing social media. Well, the other one is the Canon R7. The Canon R7 is actually a 7K sensor. So if you use that full 4:3 sensor in 7K and cropped it any way you wanted, that would give you so much leverage as well. This could be an easy firmware update this year. This could happen where we can use OpenGate. Right now, we're all waiting for the Atomos Ninja V and the V Plus to allow us to do 6K RAW, and that still hasn't happened. So I've been waiting for Atomos to do this for the last month. They said in January it's gonna happen. Well, in a few days, January is gonna be over, and it does not look like that 6K RAW is gonna be available on the Atomos Ninja for the R6 Mark II, which is very disappointing. I believe that Canon could do a light version so you can record internally the 6K. And it doesn't even have to be RAW. I don't need RAW. It could be 6K log. That would be great. It could be 6K fixed, and that would be great. I just want 6K. I just want to play with it. I want OpenGate. Give me OpenGate, because I am probably gonna go with a Panasonic in the next year or two. Not to switch with Canon. I will stay with Canon, but I will probably get a dual system where I'm using that. I have thought of Sony down the line, but I can't stomach it. I just can't. Everybody goes to Sony. It's gonna be Panasonic. They're like the underdog, and I root for them, and I've had good experience, and they're actually more video-centric than any of the cameras, which I appreciate. Firmware updates. I believe that we should have OpenGate when it comes to the Canon. It shouldn't be that hard. It could be the next firmware update. Okay, that was probably the more complicated firmware update that I'm asking Canon to do. So here, I'm gonna throw you a softball pitch right now. So here's the softball pitch. Histogram. That's it. I just want a histogram. While it's recording, I wanna see the histogram. That's it. That's all I wanna see. So I can see my histogram, and then I feel good about it. Otherwise, I have to use the Atomos Ninja V Plus or the V to see that histogram, and that is a heavy setup for a lot of these projects that I work on. I would rather just see it on the little LCD screen of the Canon. So just do that, and do that for the R7, and do that for all the past ones. Do this awesome firmware update that says, you know what? You guys complained enough. We love you. We'll give you a histogram. We'll give you a histogram. That's what I want. I want a histogram. Next firmware update. It's a slow pitch there. I just gave you a home run. It's really easy to do. The other one I don't think is very tough to do, and I don't hear people asking or complaining about this, but I think Canon should create proxies when it comes to all the recordings, but mostly when we're doing the 10-bit log. So I work with a lot of editors. I do most of my editing, but sometimes I have to offshoot it, but I'm not gonna do the full file all the time. I would rather just create a proxy, but if I don't have to create that proxy and it automatically records to the second card in 1080, that would be awesome. So Canon, listen, proxy recording, dual recording. It looks like you're going to do it when it comes to the 6K RAW, when you can record on the Atomos Ninja, and then you can record also simultaneously on the R6 Mark II in 1080. I want to see Canon do the firmware update that allows the 10-bit 4K to create a proxy in 1080 at the same time. So now you have these dual, fun stuff. So we have 4K, we have 1080, you keep the 4K, you upload the 1080 to somebody else, but then you don't have to create a proxy through DaVinci or Premiere or whatever you use, and it's already created there. That would make my workflow a lot easier. And again, a lot of companies are already doing that. I believe Sony does proxies. So come on, if Sony can do proxies, Canon can do proxies. That would make it easier. So to reiterate, I would like OpenGate. I would like an internal light 6K that we can do internally and not rely on an external recorder. And histogram, definitely, that's the low pitch there, man. Histogram while you're recording, I want to see that. And finally, proxies. Create proxies simultaneously as you're doing the 4K 10-bit in 1080. That would be amazing. Even if it was 720, I'd be happy with that because a lot of my editors don't need that high end. We just need to get it up there. They need to edit, do some grading, and then I can apply it to the final project. That would be awesome. That's all I'm asking. But what are you asking? I want to ask you that because there's ideas that you have that I don't have or I didn't even think about. The next firmware update should be amazing. It shouldn't be this minor fixes. Works with the speed light. It should be like, what? It has to be something that says, wow, this is why I stick with Canon because they keep updating their firmware in an awesome way and I can't leave. Because you know who does that? Atomos Ninja. Atomos Ninja keeps updating firmware. Even DJI updates their firmware to awesome things on a regular basis. So Canon, update it, blow our minds. Don't even just update it on this camera, update it on older cameras that are still in production because that would totally blow everybody's mind. There's so much potential here. So leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'd be really excited to hear. And let's get them to send me some free gear too. That'd be kind of fun. I could be bought easily. I totally can be bought. So we're at the sad part, the end of the video where, you're like, oh, what am I gonna do with my life? Well, there's a bunch of videos here that you can watch. The algorithm knows you. It knows you better than you know you. So just follow your heart or what Google tells you.